Hello, I'm Jason Turvey of the Class Consciousness Project, and welcome to the latest in our series of bulletins updating you on class struggle in Britain and across the world. And we'll start this week in the NHS, and there's both good and bad news for me to report this week, because junior doctors will be taking part in industrial action from the 13th to the 18th of July in their dispute over pay. The doctors, who are represented by the British Medical Association, demanded a 35% pay rise, which they said would at least in some way make up for the 15 years of below inflation pay rises that junior doctors have had to endure. The government has offered just 5% as a pay rise, which they have said is a, quote, fair and reasonable offer. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak called the strike announcement extremely disappointing, and the strike will result in thousands of planned appointments being cancelled. Of course, the simplest and quickest way to settle the dispute is for the government to sit down with the BMA and to negotiate a settlement. Meanwhile, junior doctors in Scotland rejected a 14.5% pay offer from the Scottish Government in their dispute over pay. A consultative vote resulted in over 70% of junior doctors rejecting the offer, which means that they will be taking strike action from the 12th to the 15th of July unless the Scottish Government can come up with a much improved offer between now and then. Turning to senior doctors now, and consultants have voted in favour of taking strike action for the first time in almost 50 years across NHS England in their dispute over pay. Over 85% of returned ballot papers were in favour of strike action, with a turnout of over 70%, and they'll be walking out for 2 days starting at 7 AM on the 20th of July. And we'll end our NHS roundup with some bad news, and the Royal College of Nursing's ongoing pay dispute with the NHS appears to be at an end, with a fresh ballot of members failing to meet the 50% threshold demanded by anti-trade union laws. Now, we covered this dispute back in March when we published an article over the RCN recommended acceptance of a pay offer from the government, which consisted of a one-off payment of 2%, a COVID recovery bonus of 4% for the year 2022 to 2023, and then a pay rise of 3% for this year and 1% pay rises for the next 2 years. Despite recommending this rather pathetic offer to its members to accept, they rejected the offer, forcing the RCN to call further strike action, which took place from the 30th of April to the 2nd of May. Now, while RCN and Unite members rejected the offer, sadly members of the GMB, Unison, the Royal College of Midwives and the Chartered Society of Physiotherapists all accepted the pay offer, undermining the Royal College of Nursing's members and effectively sealing the fate of the dispute. On the 23rd of May, the RCN commenced a new ballot of its members, seeking to gain a countrywide mandate for industrial action. Now, my source in the NHS has told me that the RCN had printed thousands of leaflets urging members to vote and made a real push to get ballot papers returned in the last week before the ballot finally closed. When the result of the ballot was announced by the RCN on the 27th of June, it was overwhelmingly in favour of strike action, but fell foul of the anti-trade union laws by dint of failing to meet the minimum 50% of ballot papers returned. Now, there are many reasons for the ballot's failure. The first is that other recognised unions had capitulated and accepted the dreadful offer made by the government. Another reason is the Royal College of Nursing itself. It recommended acceptance of the same terrible deal that unions like the GMB and Unison accepted, which severely damaged the relationship between the membership and the bureaucracy of the RCN. I'm also told that many members didn't receive their ballot papers, and as the majority of the trade unions accepted the deal, RCN members received their pay rise and lump sum in their June pay packet, likely killing the momentum that had built up at grassroots level and leading to the failed ballot that we saw last week. The RCN have said that they'll continue to campaign, but a conflation of factors has meant that, yet again, an NHS pay dispute has ended in defeat. Turning now to better news, and workers at Heathrow Airport have voted to accept an improved pay offer and end their dispute. Over 2,000 security staff at Terminals 3 and 5, as well as campus security, who check airside workers and vehicles, were due to take 31 days of strike action throughout July and August, but a settlement has been negotiated and accepted by members of Unite, which includes a pay rise of between 15.5% and 17.5% and an inflation-linked pay rise next year, with improvements in maternity and paternity pay. The workers have taken 18 days of industrial action to achieve this win. Meanwhile, in Bristol, and more than 200 bin workers who are members of Unite will walk out for 7 days from the 10th of July in their dispute over pay. The workers have timed their strike to coincide with the Bristol Harbour Festival and have blamed Bristol Waste, the council-owned company which employs them, for the dispute. Bin workers are also taking strike action in South Gloucestershire. 150 Suez workers have begun an indefinite strike last month and have said that they intend to strike every day until September in support of their claim. The workers maintain that Suez is making handsome profits and can afford to give them a pay rise. Bin loaders in South Gloucestershire earn just £11.53 an hour and are demanding a pay rise of 15% for this year and another 7% for next year. Staying in refuse collection, and bin workers in Blaby District Council, just south of Leicester, have started strike action in their dispute over pay. G&B members will be taking strike action on 3 consecutive Wednesdays as they fight for a 15% pay rise. Unite bin workers in Selby, in North Yorkshire, have also walked out in support of their pay claim. The Unitary Authority has offered them a 8% pay rise, a rise which the council claims is, quote, a fair wage increase, but Unite were less diplomatic, claiming that the contractor Urbaser, which employs the bin workers, pays, quote, rubbish pay. The strikes will continue across July and into August. Now, the Global Rights Index, an annual report published by the International Trade Union Confederation, has revealed that the UK has been rated as a, quote, regular violator of rights, and shares its shabby rating with countries including Albania, Belize, Canada, surprisingly, Liberia and South Africa. It's the first time in a decade that the UK has seen its ratings drop, and the report says that the quote, union busting, attempts to introduce legislation containing the right to strike and protest, and violations of collective bargaining agreements have become systematic, had led to the drop in the UK's rating. The authors of the report also said that the government's strikes minimum service levels bill, being, quote, rushed through Parliament, and is another attack on the fundamental right to strike for workers in the UK, which already lacks constitutional safeguards and takes place in a draconian legislative environment for trade unions. You can find a link to the report on our Telegram channel. And that wraps up our bulletin for this week. But if you're involved in a dispute that you think we should get to know about, get in touch with us at classconsciousnessproject@gmail.com, and you can check out our website at classconsciousnessproject.blog, where this week we've published articles on the impending collapse of the privatised and debt-ridden utility that is Thames Water, and the latest and unsurprising capitulation of leftism. You can also find us on Telegram, on Twitter, on Instagram and on Facebook. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Solidarity.